Shalom and welcome to Reaching Higher, a podcast designed for Jewish children where we embark on exciting journeys through interesting and enjoyable subjects. I'm your host, Atara, and together, let's jump in to the wonders that await us. Hello and welcome to the newest episode of Reaching Higher. Today we are going to learn about and focus on the beauty of nature and particularly about the nature in Eretz Yisrael, in the land of Israel. To start us off, we have someone named Yehoshua. Yehoshua's job is to be a landscape photographer. You probably know what a photographer is, but what's landscape? Landscape means an area of land as one person can see it. So he takes pictures of the land. He doesn't take pictures of families, pictures at weddings. He takes pictures of nature since he finds it so beautiful. Let's start off by welcoming Yehoshua from YA Fine Art. Hi, Yehoshua. Welcome. Can you introduce yourself?
Hi.
Tell us where you're from and where you live now.
My name is Yehoshua Aryeh Stauber. I'm originally from Florida. I grew up there, and then my wife and I made Aliyah here to Israel. We live in Yerushalayim right now. I am a landscape photographer in Israel. So I take pictures all around the country at the beautiful nature and also the cities. And then I sell my pictures to people to put in their home, kind of like this here.
Amazing. So let's get started. We have a lot of questions for you. I know that let's do it. I know your business is called Fine Art. I think I know what art is, but could you tell us what fine art is? What does that mean?
So my business is YA Fine Art, which is initials for Yehoshua Aryeh Fine Art. To me, fine art is when the artist is really trying to create something of real value to people that they would want to invest in and spend money on to have in their home or in a museum or something like that. So art can be anything that someone makes that's very expressive and them trying to either create music or pictures or paintings. But to me, fine art really says when the artist is trying to create something that's more to cater to people that they would want to buy it.
Okay, cool. So you're using art, you're saying art and you're saying photography. Which one is your background? Is this like an art? Did you always grow up loving coloring, or is it photography?
So I think it's a big mix of both, because I definitely grew up. I always loved coloring. I love building. I bring it back to the home I grew up in. So my mom paints, and she also went to architecture school. So all around our home was my mom's paintings. And then my dad, even though he's a doctor, on his free time, he would always be building things or finding old scrap metal and gluing it or welding it together to make sculptures, not because he had to, just because he enjoyed it. And so that's the home I grew up in. So I always had the freedom and support to explore my creative passions. So whether it was drawing or photography or making videos with my friends in school. So I would say I just was a very creative person. And because my parents saw that I loved it and I was learning so much, so they supported me, I slowly fell in love with photography to make my art. But I think I'm definitely a mix of artist and creative. And then I also love photography.
So I guess it's a combination of both that brings
it
together. So a question about photography, Yehoshua. What settings do you have on your camera? Like I have a camera on my phone. I don't think it's as fancy as the camera sitting next to you that I see. So what can you teach us a little bit?
So I can even show a little bit, because for me, it helps to visualize. But basically on my camera, I have a lot of little buttons and knobs. Obviously, they don't have on your phone. So something like this knob right here controls the shutter. And then I have a knob here that controls the aperture. And the aperture basically is the lens, how big the hole is. So I can open and close the hole, which will let in more light or less light. And then the last thing is basically every camera is made up of the lens and then the sensor. So I can open it here. You can see this is the sensor. And even on phones, there's just really, really little lenses built into the phone and a little sensor. But because my camera is bigger, I can change the lenses. I can put on different ones, and I can also control the different settings that the camera is using. So using those, I can, adjust how I want the picture to come out.
You mentioned affecting the aperture, changing the aperture affects the picture, letting in more or less light. So can you give us an
Yeah.
example? When would you change that? When is a time that you want to add more light into a picture or less light?
Yeah. So if let's say it's dark out, I'm taking pictures at nighttime. So I want to have the biggest aperture I can have to let in the most light versus in the daytime, the sun is so bright. So I might want to use a smaller aperture. But on top of the light of how bright and how dark the aperture, how it adjusts the light coming in, it also affects what's called depth of field, which is basically if you've ever seen pictures that have a really blurry background. So that's using a very wide open aperture because the way the physics work in the lens is the wider the aperture, the more blurry the background will be. Versus the smaller, the more things will be in focus. So if I'm doing, let's say, a picture of a big landscape in the middle of the day, one, it's daytime, so I want a small aperture. And then two, I want to see everything clear. I don't want anything to be blurry. So I'm also going to use a small aperture. Versus, let's say I was taking a picture of a person and it was maybe dark or I was inside at home. So I would want to use a really big aperture so that I can take the picture of the person clearly, but the background behind them will be blurry. So I'm not distracted by it.
Mm-hmm. So when you turn on your camera, do you always automatically change all the settings or sometimes do you just use the default? Like on my phone, I know we have some settings, but I normally just use the default. And I'm not really comparing because, of course, your pictures are going to look very different than mine on my phone, but curious.
Yeah. So when I'm using my big cameras and I'm taking pictures of landscapes like the one behind me, so I'm always using manual modes and I'm not letting any automatic adjustments be made. But even I sometimes like to use the auto modes when I'm taking pictures of my kids or just I'm out and I want to take a picture of something. Let's say I have um, I'm walking and I see something, a nice view, and all I have is my phone. So automatic modes are also great because at the end of the day, you could still take the picture you want. But when I'm taking pictures with my heavy duty cameras, I usually use more manual modes.
Okay. And when you take your pictures, how do you make sure that it's not blurry? How do you make sure that your hand isn't shaking or anything like that?
So it's a great question. I almost, I always pretty much, I always use a tripod. So it has legs and then the camera goes on the top. And that allows me to set the camera down and leave it still. And then I even use a remote control so that I don't even touch the camera because when you touch it, it could shake it. And so that's how I get really, really clear pictures, even when they're printed really, really big, because sometimes our hands, even if we try to be really still, are shaking a little bit.
I would never think of that. I would think that a tripod enough would be enough to keep the camera stable, but cool to know that there's even a remote that you could click to make sure it's really perfect.
I'll even add one more. Is sometimes it's windy. So how do you deal with the wind? So the tripods I use have a little hook on it. And sometimes I'll hang a weight, or if I don't have a weight, I'll hang my backpack to weigh it down. So that even stops any wind moving the tripod as well.
Amazing. Learning a lot of new things here. Very cool. Do you always use that specific camera or do you have multiple cameras? And do you ever use drones to take pictures?
So I have a lot of different cameras. This is one of my cameras. I actually have an even bigger camera that I use now for my fine art photography. And I also have a bigger tripod because a bigger camera needs a bigger tripod. But I also have small cameras. I have one that's really small, much smaller than this, that I like to carry around with me if I'm walking on the street. Because in my opinion, at the end of the day, the camera is just a tool. The camera is not as important as the eyes that are looking through the camera. And sometimes the best camera is the one you have with you. So if all you have is a phone, you can also take really beautiful pictures with it. So it really depends on the day, which camera I have with me.
I guess it's a good lesson for us because a lot of us don't have fancy cameras like you, but like you said, most important thing is our eye and how we see things and what we're taking pictures of. So even if it's not the same
Definitely.
quality, at least it's better to get the shot and the picture, even if we don't have a fancy camera. So talking about the pictures, what do you say makes a good picture? Are pictures different? How is that picture with the camera that you take different? I also go up to the Kinneret with my family and take pictures. What's going to make your picture better and different than my picture?
So it's a really good question. First off, I think it's very, very subjective. Some people might see a really beautiful picture and think it's beautiful, and some people might not think so. So at the end of the day, I think it's really about the person taking the pictures, what they find to be beautiful. There's so many different styles of photography. You could shoot things really close up of really close flowers, and you can also do really big views. So that I think is the first rule. There's no actual rules of what's beautiful or a good picture and what's not. But I like to go for pictures that really make me feel the experience that I had. So if I was there, I want to capture, like, if I'm at the Kinneret, I want my picture to really make you feel like you're at the Kinneret. So that sometimes means the best lighting. I like to shoot at sunset when the sun is low and their colors are the most amazing and the lighting is the best, or sunrise. So for me, I really put a lot of emphasis on the lighting. And then when it comes to the actual taking the picture, it depends what I'm taking a picture of, but I like to have good balance. So like not too much sky and not too much ground. And sometimes I use a grid on my camera to help me balance. Like the sky will be 1/3 at the top, and then the rest is under the horizon is the land and whatnot. Or if I'm shooting a picture of a tree, depending on where you put the tree, if it's too close to the edge versus in the middle, it can, affect the overall picture. So those are things I'm thinking about, is what am I putting in the little box that is my camera? And if I show it to someone who wasn't there, are they going to really feel the energy that I felt? And at the end of the day, it's up to me if I think it's beautiful or not. Someone else might not like it, but that's okay because it's my picture.
I like that. There's a phrase, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, that each
right,
person sees something differently. So it's not like an objective thing that everybody in the world thinks this picture is beautiful. Everybody looks at the world differently and defines beauty in a different way. So another question about pictures. In our house, I have a lot of pictures on my walls. So why would people choose, I know your photography is all about nature, why would people choose to hang nature on their walls?
So I think that people really like when they walk into their home, that it gives them a feeling of comfort and home, and that it can lift their spirits. Maybe you walk in after a long day, to walk in and see a beautiful picture of nature and the sun, it brings light into the home. So I think at the end of the day, what you put in your home says a lot about you. And even if you're inside your home and you're surrounded by walls and concrete, but if you like nature and you like beauty in your life, so you might want to add that also inside your home and not just out.
Amazing. Yehoshua, what's your favorite thing to take pictures of?
So I personally love taking pictures of the land of Israel, where I call home now, because for me, it's such a beautiful land, and you can drive up to the top or down to the bottom, and it feels like a totally different world. And so I like taking pictures of the land of Israel because it's meaningful to me. So I guess I would really sum it up. I like taking pictures of things that are meaningful to me. And I think everyone should strive or try to take pictures of things that they find meaningful to them, so that they can, they can capture that little moment in time and save it for themselves, and then share it with other people that maybe weren't there.
Amazing. Are there any restrictions halachically about pictures, things you could take pictures of?
Yeah, so there are. One of the restrictions is you're not allowed to take pictures of idolatry or avodah zarah, because you're glorifying it. So for example, if there is a certain religion that the Torah considers to be avodah zarah, so it would be asur to take pictures and glorify, let's say it's a building structure of avodah zarah, because then you would be, attributing value to it when we don't see any value in that. But on the other hand, there also might be limits with taking pictures where you're trying to like create, something that doesn't follow the Torah's values.
Okay, interesting. I know in 2024, there's a big rise of artificial intelligence, AI. We constantly are asking, even for this podcast, you wouldn't believe, ChatGPT. I ask robots on the computer a lot of my questions of what's the best way to teach kids this. Maybe I shouldn't be sharing all my secrets here, but you know what? If you can't beat them, join them, right? So how does artificial intelligence affect your business? I know a computer could generate and create pictures. So how does that affect what you're trying to do?
That's a really good question. And I've been getting that more and more now. I'd say two things. First, the artificial intelligence that we have today, and I don't see it in the near future, it being able to produce a detailed image like the ones that I'm taking, because I'm shooting real life. Let's say I'm taking a picture of a tree. Every little leaf has endless detail in it. And for artificial intelligence to generate that detail on the scale of nature is really far out. That's one thing. So it really doesn't match up when you're printing them big. Maybe for like a small picture, you can, fake it with artificial intelligence. But for big ones, real life can never be matched by artificial intelligence. And the second thing I'd say is that at the end of the day, artificial intelligence is not creative. It's only using whatever information it's been given to generate copies and mishmashes of that. And so when it comes to actually creating something new, the human creativity is unmatched by artificial intelligence. And for me, I feel like photography is such a beautiful art form because it's not only me as the artist, I am photographing creation itself, which was made by Hashem. And so artificial intelligence for sure cannot compete with Hashem and the detail that he put into this world and the beauty within every little scene, every little tree, every little leaf. And so by using my camera to photograph that, I'm relying on Hashem's power, which is far greater than any artificial intelligence can be.
Most definitely. I like the way that you involved Hashem in that answer, because definitely artificial intelligence isn't endless and it can't create in that same way that the human being created by Hashem can. So Yehoshua, what advice would you give to our audience? Do you have any tips for kids who want to create their own art? Where can they begin?
Wow. So first and foremost, I'd say just do it. Start creating things, whether it's drawing, whether it's using a camera. If you have one in the home, maybe ask your parents if you can use their camera, or if you could get a little one. Cameras nowadays you can get for really, really, they're not expensive. That's how I started. I got a little small camera and I still have the pictures I took from it when I was 10, 11 years old. And those are some of my favorite pictures. So I'd say just starting, whether it's taking pictures, whatever it may be, going outside, whether it's drawing or music. I'd say the most important thing is to do it because you enjoy it and not because you're trying to prove anything to anyone. It doesn't matter what anyone says, whether it's good or bad. At the end of the day, if you're creating something that's meaningful to you, then that's really powerful, I think. And you can always slowly learn over time. I'm taking pictures now, but I've been doing it for almost 20 years, which is a long time, but I've learned slowly. And when you do that, you can experiment and you can mess up, and then you can learn from your mistakes and try something new. And that's one of the best ways to learn, for me at least.
Amazing. We just got to get started, whatever age it is, get started, even if we don't know so much about it. But like you said, it took you 20 years to get to the place you are now. And I'm sure you're still on this process to grow and learn more. So after working and doing this for 20 years, what is your favorite piece of art you've ever created?
Ooh, probably my children, because they're amazing and I look at them every day and they're so beautiful. The truth is, it's really hard to pinpoint like an actual, photograph, which is my favorite, because it usually is like the last one that I made. That's the one that my mind is on. That's the most recent one. And then it gets pulled into the whole mix of all my pictures, which I really like all of them. So in a way, it's hard to pick a favorite, but I'd say my family that I've created in our home here in Israel. I think your home and your family is, definitely a creative process. So I love that.
Beautiful. Yehoshua, thank you so much for giving us your time and for teaching us all about photography and art and your background. We really appreciate it.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Since we're talking all about nature today, here I have with me Shalom and Yisrael to tell you some jokes about nature.
Hey Sven, I have a joke for you.
Let's hear.
Why is glass so dangerous?
I didn't know.
Because it's full of blades.
Sham, I have a joke for you. You want to hear?
Okay.
What did the little tree say to the big tree?
I don't know.
Leave me alone. Thank you for listening.
Wait, one sec. I have another joke.
Let's hear.
What type of tree fits in your hand?
I don't know.
A palm tree.
Since this episode is all about nature, we asked some kids, what part of nature do you love? What do you think is the most beautiful thing to look out outdoors?
My name is Sweet, and my favorite thing in nature is trees.
Hi, I'm Shalom. You might recognize me from the jokes. My favorite thing in nature is how everything is colorful. Hi, I'm Asha. My favorite part of nature is the sunset.
My name is Naftali, and my favorite thing to see in nature is greenery.
My Mocha and I like to look at birds. My name is Anathan, and my favorite thing to do in nature is the quiet. My name is Joelle, and my favorite thing to do is to see birds.
My name is Adir, and my favorite thing to look at in nature is unharvested food.
Today, I'm going to share with you 2 different art projects that you can easily do at home by walking around your backyard or a park in your neighborhood. Even if you don't think of yourself as an artist, I encourage you to try one of these. Take Yehoshua's advice and find the beauty within the nature all around us. So, for the first activity, let's get creative. Think about your favorite place outside. It could be a place that you've been to, like a park or the beach, or somewhere from your imagination, like a magical forest or even an alien planet. So, take a piece of paper and lightly sketch out the basic shapes of your landscape. Remember to include things like the horizon line, where the sky meets the land or the water. Next, add some fun details like trees, mountains, rivers, or some aliens if you're drawing about outer space, and some animals. Once your sketch is ready, start coloring it in. Use your favorite colors and don't be afraid to blend them in to make your drawing look even more beautiful. If you want, you can add some shading to show where the light hits and where the shadows fall. When you're done, take a picture of your masterpiece and ask your parents to help you send it to us. We can't wait to see all the amazing landscapes you create. Another idea of a project you can make is a nature collage. It's super fun and easy, and you can make it just by using things around your backyard or a local park. If you're ready, grab a piece of paper or a piece of cardboard to use as your base. This is going to be the background for your collage. And now it's time for a little bit of an adventure. Go outside to your backyard or a park near you and start collecting nature's treasures. Look for things that are all different. Sometimes you could find things like leaves, but get different shapes and colors to make the collage look really cool. Look for flowers. Maybe you can find fresh flowers. They add a lot of color to your collage. Find some sticks because they're great for making outlines or adding texture. Maybe you can find some rocks or pebbles for something a little different. And bring home some grass, long or short. It can be like a paintbrush. You can use it in your glue if you want. Maybe you could find pine cones or acorns, anything that you find in your park. Once you've gathered it all, spread it out on a table and look at what you found. Take a minute to appreciate, isn't nature so amazing? Look at all these different things we can find, and maybe you even found them really close to your house or in your backyard. Now take glue and start arranging the items on your paper. You can make a pattern with them, you create a picture with them, or you could just place them however you think they look best. Remember, there's no wrong way to create art. Carefully glue each item down, and voila! Once everything is glued down, let it dry for a while. When it's all set, you'll have a beautiful nature collage that you made all by yourself. Thank you so much for creating these things with us today. Yehoshua mentioned the importance of having the right lighting in the picture. This is called aperture, the amount of light that's let in through the lens. We now have a mini experiment for you to see the importance of light in photography. Here are the materials that you need. 4 things. Number 1, a flashlight. Number 2, a few small objects like a toy, a plant, a block, a pen, things like that. Number 3, a dark room. That's not really an object. And number 4, a white wall in the room. So the truth is, you just need a room that you can shut the light and the curtains or the tree seam, a white wall in that room, a flashlight, and some small objects. The first thing that you're going to do is you're going to place one of the objects on the table or on the floor. You're going to shine the flashlight on the object from different angles. Shine it from the front, from the side, from the back of the object. And you're going to see how the shadows and the highlights change with each angle. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to change the distance by moving the flashlight closer to the object and then farther away. And you're going to notice here how the intensity of the light and the sharpness of the shadows change when you change the distance of the light from the object. Now, as you can see with these 2 examples, by changing the distance and by the way you position the light, that photographers, when they understand how the lighting works, they can make simple scenes look magical or dramatic. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of Reaching Higher. We hope you enjoyed Yehoshua's interview where he taught us all about art and photography. We hope you, as always, enjoyed our jokes and maybe you took our advice and now can appreciate the nature around you just a little bit more. And please, as always, please give us feedback on our episodes and let us know your thoughts. You can reach us at reachinghigherpodcast@gmail.com or message us on Instagram, Reaching Higher Podcast. We can't wait to see you on next week's episode of Reaching Higher.